week it's the Cleveland Browns, and to tee that up for us, here's John Telich, legendary sportscaster from Cleveland.
Hi everybody, greetings from Cleveland, where in most off seasons, the must-do list, well, it's longer than one of those receipts you get from a drugstore. You need a head coach, you need a GM. Well, this time around, they're fine in that department. They upgraded their offensive line. They got a tight end. Their offense seemed to click. But this time around, they need help in the back end of the defense. Denzel Ward is fine, but Grant Delpit, the rookie safety, and Greedy Williams, the second-year cornerback, both missed the year. They should be back, but you can never have enough corners and safeties for that matter. How about help for Myles Garrett on the defensive line or a speedy linebacker? They have salary cap money to go take care of some of these needs, but they also have to look to the future. Mayfield, Ward, Chubb, those guys are going to have to be taken care of as well. And the biggest irony is this. The NFL draft is a big deal in Cleveland, but this year, the Browns are drafting number 26 overall. And it happens right here in our town. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks, John. He's been great covering us, giving us Browns information all year long. And, Jarrett, I want to start with what he started with. They finally go into a season, an offseason, where they know they're stable at head coach. How big of an advantage is that for them?
I think it's huge, for an organization like the Browns who've been searching for that coach. Stefanski's that guy that you can start sitting back and say, we're good here, and now we can start taking advantage of what we need to do down the line to try to figure out how we can get this team to a certain point where we can truly contend in the AFC. And, now that you have that, then you can start moving around. But, man, everybody talks about quarterback, and that position is so key. But also as well, making sure that you have a head coach that can actually do the things that you need to get done and can lead your football team, I think is huge.
What about this, JP? I know the Browns are happy to be back in the playoffs. They won 11 games, but they missed a huge opportunity when they played the Chiefs. They lost by 5 points, 22-17. Mahomes got his bell rung. He's out of the game. You've got your chance. They outscored the Chiefs 14-3 in the second half. I think they made a big mistake. You talk about a young coach. They punt the ball away. They think they'll get it back. They never do. That's how the season ends. And props to the Chiefs for being able to get those first downs and milk the clock. But if I'm a Browns fan, I'm not satisfied. I think you left some money on the table there in that game against the Chiefs. You got Mahomes out. You got to go take that ball game.
Yeah, you do. And defensively, that's where I think in this offseason, you got to make a couple moves here and try to figure out how to kind of shore up that defense a little bit. Defensive end is definitely one of those issues where they got to figure out how to find a good defensive end, but also too in the secondary, cornerback has to be one of those positions that they have to either find, I don't know if it's through free agency, but also in the draft where they need to definitely address that. On the other side of the ball, though, Chris, you think about the quarterback position. They're stable there. So are they going to extend Baker Mayfield? I mean, they need to figure out about doing that as well. But offensively, to add to Baker, you need to find, and I know people, it's crazy. I was thinking about this morning that you need to find receivers, especially a number one receiver. And everybody's like, well, OBJ is going to come back. I don't know what's going to happen with OBJ. Jarvis Landry is great, but we look at his person production, it was not there in 2020. So you definitely need a guy. So go into the draft where you can find one of those younger wide receivers to be able to get the job done for the long term. Landry, OBJ, good for right now. Long term with Baker as he grows, they need to be able to shore up that position as well.
All right, so put on your GM hat now, Jarrett. Are you going for that receiver in that first spot, or because they're deep in the draft, they're not used to this? It's been a while since their first pick was so late. Or do you solidify that defense? Are you just going best player available?
Oh, I always think you always got to look at best player available, but there are some receivers that I think you got to maybe hone in on. And if you can get that, especially later in the draft, why not? I always think of the offensive side of the ball. If you have your quarterback, you got to do whatever you can to be able to get him all of the tools that he needs to be successful. And we know in the AFC, if you're going to be able to, as Chris was talking about, you get close to beating the defending champs. Well, the one thing that you're going to have to do is you need firepower in that AFC. So I definitely would go wide receiver, I think, but also can't go wrong with trying to find a good corner too, because that's a guy that can be stable. I'm glad I'm not a GM. These are too hard decisions to be able to make on the fly, especially when we don't have that much time. We need like 10 days to make one pick.
Hey, I'm glad I'm not a Browns fan because Chad Henne, 3rd and 14, you let him run like he's Lamar Jackson. Then he completes the pass on 4th down. The Browns should have gotten the ball back. I think they go down there and win that thing, and maybe they're in the Super Bowl. So you're right, Jared, as we always talk about, games come down to a few plays, and sometimes it could be a guy like Chad Henne that's making it.
Or JB Biunno. You never know.
Oh, man. JP.
Smooth.
Who on this team had the Browns with that first-round win, by the way? We need to go through the big game-bound archives here. Anybody call that, Jack? Did anybody predict that the Browns were going to win?
I had them.
You had them.
I had them getting to where they got. There's no way I had them beating the Chiefs. And
Right.
when that game was in the fourth quarter and it was still on the line,
Yeah.
then it was like, whoa. This can't be happening, can it? And it did.
Well, if you get good Baker Mayfield, he's feast or famine. I thought the Chiefs should be on upset alert. I wouldn't call him the pick, but I said, hey, I wouldn't be surprised. And then when Mahomes goes out, I'm like, Browns are going to win this game, and they found a way not to, which is very much like the Cleveland Browns.
You need good Baker, like not bad Baker, like the one that gets stuck
Right.
outside with the groceries, in the commercial, right?
And sometimes it takes a while to learn to win. And Jarrett, what is that like? I mean, is it a flip switch that gets flipped there, or do you have to learn how to win at this level?
Man, it's all about the culture inside of locker rooms, and it starts with ownership and then also your GM and your head coach, and then who you have at quarterback. I mean, that is huge as well, because we know how big that position is in the game of football, and then it trickles down to be able to the guys that you're bringing into your organization. And so, you look at what Kansas City's done. You saw, and I know we always talk about the Patriots as well, but they create that. They create that, and over time, that becomes a part of their legacy. It becomes a part of their fabric, and I think that's what every team is hoping for. So the Browns are hoping that they're getting to that point. I think they're close, but they still have to figure it out. And I think this was just another taste of what it feels like to get close, and hopefully over time they can keep getting better. The hard part is, you're trying to keep up with Kansas City, and you're at their beck and call right now. So let's just see what happens. But it's not going to be easy, knowing that Patrick Mahomes is not going anywhere for a while, and that's the guy you got to take off of the throne in that division.
Yeah, and I know you love your Bulls, and we all watched the documentary last year, and you see the story about how even Michael Jordan and the Bulls had to learn how to win. There's a team you have to get over that hump. You have to go through stages. You can't just go from, okay, here we are, to, okay, now we're just a dynasty. Even for guys, some of the greatest of all time, there is that learning curve.
Yeah, and let's go back, and Jack knows this as well, being a Bears fan. My dad, the 85 Bears talked about that as well. I mean, it was like San Francisco. You got to get over San Francisco. You have to. And then finally you do, but you go through some rough times here and there, and then you start to feel, okay, this is what it feels like. What makes those teams special, is that when they get a taste of it, or they get to the promised land, it's how they do it the next year. Are they still as hungry as they were before, when they were scratching and clawing trying to get there? And that's what makes teams special, and that's what makes these dynasties that we've seen, especially in the Patriots situation with Tom Brady and Belichick and that whole entire staff and that whole entire organization, what makes them so special of getting back to the big game, because it is really, really hard. And we see some guys that are really great that never get a chance to even go to the big game and play. So it's a testament to their grind, to their hustle, and also to the culture inside of those locker rooms.
You talked about your dad, obviously a Hall of Famer. You had a big part in that induction. I'm going to tear up just thinking about it. But how much does it mean, not just to a player, but the immediate family, the extended family? It's really an honor that goes through a lot of folks, not just the player. You think about sacrifices made and time spent and the effort. As we get ready to announce the new Hall of Fame class, how special is that to you? Just the memories, not only of your pops, but just what that meant to the entire clan.
Man, I'm telling you, it's there's certain guys, Chris, that when, like my dad, it was the guys that are in the hall. I don't know if all of them thought like this and there was their thought process, but my dad wanted to be there at the end. That was one of the big goals that was on his checklist. They're like, I got to get there, because once you get there, you're solidified. You're there forever, and you're talked about amongst the great. And it's a small fraternity of guys that get a chance to be able to be there. And so, yeah, it did. It meant a lot to me. I was only 13 years old, but I knew what it meant to him. And the fact that he had me induct him into the Hall of Fame made it even more special. So to be the first son to ever do that, I don't know if I can ever say I'm the first at anything, but I'm the first at that. And I go back to the guys. I mean, a couple of years ago, just seeing guys that I played with, like Ed Reed, like it's just it's crazy to know that a guy that I played with has a gold jacket on. You know, guys like that are in that conversation of Reggie Wayne, who I played with, and Frank Gore. So it's the top of the top, and I think everybody wants to get there. And it's special for those guys. It's also special for the families, because we know how hard they sacrifice to be able to get to that point in their life.
That's still one of my favorite moments, seeing Jarrett introduce his dad.
I wonder how nervous were you? Do you remember? Getting ready to go up there?
Chris, I was sweating so much. I was so nervous. My flat top was sweating, man. Like it was awesome though. But I remember just hitting that joke. I told everybody, they were all clapping. I said, I'm trying to get this over with, and everybody laughed. And as soon as I said that, I just went and I took a couple breaths and knocked it out. But yeah, I had a chance a couple years ago when Brian Urlacher went in to go stand right at the spot where I did the speech, because it's different now than it used to be. You know, they have it in like the stadium now. It's all different. Right. And I just remember sitting there going, holy cow, are you serious right now? Like, I actually did this. And it's a moment that people still talk to me about. And it's cool that my dad knew that was going to be a part of my legacy, and that he wanted to set that up for me. And as a 13-year-old, I was asking him, why are you doing this to me? But now I understand.